And welcome back, folks. You are here at the Appraiser Coach Podcast. My name is Dustin Harris. I am your host, and have an exciting episode coming up for you today. Kind of a continuation of a discussion that I had with a great individual by the name of Brian Mathews here a few weeks ago. You might remember that episode. It was called USPAP, Myth or Fact, and we're going to continue our little game here today. But first, I want to remind you that we are sponsored by three great companies, including OREP Insurance. I'm coming up on my renewal for my E&O, and can't wait to go through the process. I know that sounds a little silly, but I can tell you that it is so easy with OREP that I actually look forward to my renewal. It's orep.org if you have not checked them out recently. Again, not .com, but .org. That's OREP, orep.org. We're also sponsored by Alamode. I've been with Alamode for over 20 years. They've been the backbone of what I do here at the appraisal office. They help me to do more with less, folks. They help me to be more efficient and more effective at what I do, and they will help you as well. Check them out right now for a full 15 days free. That's right, folks, free, F-R-E-E. That's alamo.com/free trial. That's alamo.com/free trial. And speaking of free, DataMaster also offering 14 days free. You can try them for 2 weeks, folks, and check them out and find out what you are missing. DataMasterFreeTrial.com/coach. Once again, it is DataMasterFreeTrial.com/coach. Well, folks, as I mentioned, we are joined by a great guy. New friend of mine reached out to me a couple weeks ago on the email. He's a listener here at the podcast. And as we got to talking, I realized that he had some expertise in the USPAP side of things. And there was kind of a thing that I've been kicking around in the back of my brain for a while, and he just seemed like the perfect guy to do this with. And, I think the first episode was super fun, and can't wait to do this second episode here. And basically what we're doing, well, first of all, welcome back to the program, Mr. Brian Mathews. I appreciate you joining us, my friend.
Thanks for having me back, and thanks for everything you do for appraisers. I'm really enjoying the podcast.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. It's something that I enjoy a lot. Somebody asked me the other day if I didn't get paid for the podcast, would I still be doing it? In other words, if I didn't have sponsors, would I still be doing it? And the answer is yes. I didn't actually expect to get sponsors when I started going into this because, I just thought it would be fun to get some information out there and to talk to my fellow appraisers across the nation, and it has been. It's been a real kick, so I appreciate that, Brian. I hope that shines through, that I actually enjoy what I'm doing here. So
yeah, that's clear. That comes through loud and clear.
Cool. Well, you know what, Brian and I were talking after our last episode a couple of weeks ago. Come to find out that Brian and I have another connection in the sense that I have been using a company over the last couple of weeks. Now, they're not a sponsor here, but I'll tell you, I am certainly willing to get out information to anybody if it is good information. And for my cost approaches, I have been using a company the last couple of months, probably about 6 to 9 months now. The company is called Dwelling Cost, DWELLING cost.com. And come to find out, Brian, you have a connection there.
Yeah, we've got a couple of appraisers on the team, and they don't let us anywhere near the data, but we're there to answer questions that occasionally come up from appraisers. We're also there to try to help apply that data to the actual structure and try to come up with a accurate information, accurate replacement cost data at a reasonable cost.
Well, I was raised on Marshall Swift. That was kind of the holy grail of the cost approach, if you will. If you used anything else, it was somehow sacrilege. But I'll tell you, I'll be honest with you. Marshall Swift has been a challenge for me over the years. It's been expensive. It's been, somewhat difficult to use. I know some appraisers would disagree with me on that, and some people are going to think I'm speaking, in heretic language here as we speak here. But I'll tell you, I've been using Dwelling Cost. It's super easy to use. I found it to be pretty accurate, and the cost is very, very swallowable. It's very easy to deal with.
Yeah, it's $75 a year, and it's an unlimited use.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Service.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Well, I'm glad to have that connection. So for those of you who did not listen to the last episode, I just want to go back in the archives. It doesn't have a number yet as of this recording, so I can't tell you which episode it is. But just a couple weeks ago, just look up USPAP, Myth or Fact. And Brian had joined us for that one. I would listen to that one before you listen to this one, though it doesn't probably matter which direction. I'll just give you a rundown. We're playing a little game here, and it stemmed from the situation that I often find myself in as an appraiser, talking to other appraisers. And I find myself doing it as well. We do something and we are used to doing something, and probably we're doing it right, or at least hopefully we're doing it right. Or if we're not doing it right, hopefully it's a minor thing. But we think we're doing things right, and then someone says, well, why do you do it that way? And whether it be a client or a borrower or another appraiser or what have you, we often point our finger toward USPAP and say, well, USPAP requires it. Well, we're finding out that sometimes that's actually a myth. Sometimes that some of the blame that we're putting on the USPAP side of things actually belongs on Fannie Mae. Sometimes it belongs on client-specific instructions. Sometimes it's just made up out of thin air. And so I wanted to have Brian on here, who understands USPAP much better than I do, to play a little game called USPAP Myth or Fact. We'll call this volume number 2, episode number 2, as we continue through the questions here about what is a myth and what is a fact. Anything you want to add, Brian?
Yeah, I would just add that many times we're doing things a certain way because, we've done it that way for years and years, and Fannie and Freddie require it or FHA requires it. But we may end up doing those things even when we're not doing an assignment that has anything to do with Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac or FHA. We tend to just do the same things over and over again. And when you get off of those Fannie forms and start using the general purpose forms, and Alamode's got a great one, you find that there's a lot of things there that USPAP doesn't require, and they can be a big time saver. Okay.
And I just want to make it clear. I know we made it clear on the first episode, but make it clear here as well. You're not just pulling these things out of your backside, right?
No, we'll try to cite the frequently asked questions. We mentioned the frequently asked questions in the first episode. They're in the back of the USPAP book. They're a great resource, great guidance on how to apply USPAP in real life situations.
Yeah, and I'm glad you pointed it out that way because, sometimes we look at frequently asked questions, and I know that in my USPAP class they said those are not binding. But that being said, they may not be binding, but sometimes you read the standards and it's really hard to say, well, how does that really apply to what I'm dealing with? The frequently asked questions, what I love is they're real life situations where you can look at and say, yeah, I've been there, done that. And, oh, really? I should have done that? Okay. Now we know.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
And most of the time when I get questions from appraisers, usually there's a frequently asked question that's, if not the identical situation, it's very similar.
Absolutely. Okay, good. All right, so new episode number 1, a text message to a client indicating what the estimated value of the property is or will be is not an appraisal. Okay, a text message to a client indicating what the estimated value of the property is or will be is not an appraisal. In other words, what you're saying, Brian, is if I text my client and say, "Hey, I'm working on this appraisal. Looks like we're going to come in about $250." You're telling me that the question is not an appraisal, and I would say it is. That is an appraisal, right?
Yes, that is an appraisal, and it's an appraisal that clearly probably doesn't comply with standard 2. It's a written appraisal, would need to comply with standard 2, and unless it's a really, really long text message, it probably doesn't comply with standard 2.
Good point. Okay, so this goes back in my mind to the experience that I had in my very first USPAP class, and they used the quintessential, you've heard it 1,000 times, if you're sitting out on your back deck with your neighbor and you're having a beer one evening and he looks over and he says, "What do you think, Bob? What do you think my house is worth?" And you say, "I don't know, probably about $215." Bam, you've committed you've given an appraisal. Is that correct?
Yes, you have given an appraisal. The saving grace there is at least that's an oral appraisal. So the requirements for an oral appraisal may be less than or are less than in terms of communication, less than what would be required in a written appraisal. So the point here is that written communication in a text message or an email is a written appraisal, and one that doesn't probably most likely comply with standard 2.
Okay. Now, remind me, maybe go into a little bit more detail there as far as an oral report goes, because I think I was taught incorrectly. When I was taught USPAP years and years ago, my first USPAP class, again, they brought up that scenario that I just gave to you, and she said, I remember very specifically saying, now, if you say, "Hey, I don't know, Bob, I guess it's worth $215," you've got to then read to him or recite from memory all of the certifications and everything else. In other words, you have to give it all at once. That's not actually accurate, correct?
No, that's not accurate, and it's not practical either. Most of the time when we're doing an oral appraisal, it's not in our backyard. It's maybe court testimony or some other type of scenario where we're calling out that oral appraisal, and we don't have control over the situation. We can't sit and read the whole certification. We can't sit and read all of the data that we relied on. So we're asked questions, we answer the questions, and that's it. But we still need a signed and dated certification in the work file that is evidence of us meeting our USPAP obligations.
So where I was taught incorrectly, yes, we have to have a certification, but that's not oral. That actually has to be written because it has to be signed and dated.
Yeah, signed and dated and in the work file.
Okay, good. Number 2, providing only, quote, comparable, unquote, sales to a client with no estimate of value prior to them ordering an appraisal is considered to be an appraisal. This goes back to the old, hey, can you pulling comps, right? Prior to HVCC, that was pretty standard practice, right? The clients would call, and of course they couldn't say, what are you going to come in at? They couldn't shop appraisers, but they would get around that by saying, hey, could you provide for me 4 or 5 comps on this property? And I know appraisers across the country were doing that left and right. The question is whether or not this is an appraisal.
Yeah, and it is. And the key word, you highlighted it there very well, the key word is comparable. As soon as we start filtering the data to the subject property, it establishes a range, and it can be considered an appraisal. So we filter the data. The net effect is that it is an appraisal, and that's a frequently asked question number 204. If you
Perfect. 204. Okay, so let me ask you this, Brian. What about someone coming saying, "Hey, I'm curious as to what things are selling for in this particular subdivision. Anything wrong with providing a CMA list of a specific subdivision that's not directly related to any one property?"
As long as you're not filtering the data, as long as you're providing all of the sales in a neighborhood or all of the sales in a zip code, all of the sales in a city without filtering it to the subject property, and in that case, I wouldn't even want to know the subject property. Just kind of give me a ballpark where it is, and I'll give you the data. I don't want to even know where the subject property is. Gotcha. So I can't be accused of filtering that data to that subject property.
Right. Okay, good. Number 3, because FHA allows one lender to assign an appraisal to another lender, it is okay to add information to the report, such as a copy of a license, an additional listing or comparable, and send the revised report to the second lender. Okay, so what you're talking about here, Brian, is FHA will allow, so a borrower goes into Bank A and for whatever reason decides down the road after the appraisal's been completed to go to Bank B, FHA can assign that report to another lender. Okay, so then the question is, Bank B now comes to the appraiser and says, "Hey, we want one more comp." It's okay to do that, right?
No, that would be a myth. Yeah, and that's one that unfortunately I get that call for some reason after appraisers have done it.
Yeah,
and
right.
then they're calling me saying, "Was that okay to
Whoops.
do?" So, yeah, we want to be real careful of that one. So because the new lender has been assigned the report from the original lender does not make that new lender your client, and we still need that authorization from the original client in order to share the assignment results or a copy of the report with that new lender.
Okay, so let's take this one step further. FHA, not FHA, but client A, who was your client, then sends you an email or what have you and says, "Hey, the borrowers went to Bank B. We give you permission to answer their questions, add comparables, do whatever you need to do." I guess the question then comes: is that now a different appraisal? Am I okay to add another comp at that point if I have permission from lender A?
No, we can add, even if it's the same lender, we can do additional scope of work, add additional scope of work, like an additional comp or an additional listing, without it necessarily having to be treated like a new assignment. As long as we're not changing the client's name. I mean, that's typically the problem. They come a lot of times and ask you to change the name of the client on the report, and that would be readdressing, and that's clearly prohibited.
Okay. All right. Good. Question number 4. When utilized in a report, USPAP requires a warning to the readers that a hypothetical conditions and or extraordinary assumption might have affected assignment results. This is easy. This is a fact.
Yeah, that's a fact.
Good. And the reason I know that is this is in my office. I deal with a lot. We cross check each other's work all the time, and a lot of times there's a hypothetical situation, and they lay out, here's the actual situation, here's where here's what we're doing, and then that's it. And I always come back and say, no, you got to say this may have affected assignment results. Why is that, Brian? Why do we have to say it's kind of course it would, or of course it may. Why do we have to actually put it out there?
It's just a warning to the reader that hey, there is a hypothetical condition here. We've hopefully made that clear and conspicuous, or there is an extraordinary assumption here, and then the reader needs to know that, hey, that might have affected the assignment results. And if you want to take it one step further and say it did or it didn't, certainly in the case of proposed construction, I think we can safely say it did, or in the case of, say, carbon monoxide detectors, making it subject to installation of carbon monoxide detectors, I think we can make an assumption it didn't affect the assignment results. But at a minimum, we want that warning that it might have affected the assignment result. To not just to the intended user and the client, but to any other readers.
Yeah, sometimes I feel kind of silly putting it may have affected assignment results when any dummy would look at that and say, well, yeah, duh. The difference between a multi-million-dollar property on this vacant piece of ground and the vacant piece of ground is kind of a big difference.
Yeah. And it's important to remember, too, when we're talking about the URAR and all of the Fannie forms, if you're checking any box at the bottom of page 2 other than as is, they're either a hypothetical condition or an extraordinary assumption. And so when we're checking those boxes, again, other than as is, lots of times when I look over reports, that warning is not there. So we want to make sure that we add that warning.
Nice. So anytime another box other than as is checked, you've got to have that statement in there.
Right,
Good,
right.
Good.
That's frequently asked question number 213.
Thank you. Okay, 213, folks. Number 5, standards rule number 2-2 requires that each report be labeled as either a complete appraisal or a restricted appraisal. I would say that's a fact.
No, that's a myth. The term complete appraisal went away a long time ago. Remember, we got rid of limited appraisals when the scope of work rule came in 2006.
Right.
And so if there's no limited appraisals, there's no complete appraisals. They did change the report labeling, the reporting options in 2014, so that now we've just got appraisal report and restricted appraisal report.
Now, do you have to put those? Maybe that's where I got a little confused. Do I have to put it's either an appraisal report or a restricted?
Yes.
Let me ask you this. If it's a restricted appraisal report, I need to put the word restricted on there, right?
Yeah, you need it in either case.
Okay.
So we need to identify the report option that was used either under standard 2-2A or B, either an appraisal report or a restricted appraisal report.
Good. One thing I really like about a la mode is the fact that, it makes this very, very easy. Not that you can ever point to your software and say, they made me USPAP compliant. Okay. We know that reports are not USPAP compliant. People are, or not, as the case may be. But I'll tell you, it sure makes it a lot easier using a la mode. A la mode has all kinds of forms that can be used for any type of assignment type. And guess what? These are made by individuals who understand appraisal. In other words, they're going to help us to become USPAP compliant. That's one of the many things that a la mode does. If you are not with a la mode, folks, you need to check them out. Go to alamode.com/free trial. That's alamode.com/free trial. You can try them for 15 days. And then once you do, I guarantee, folks, you're going to want to stay on forever. How about a $349 per year, 10-year price guarantee when you sign on with a la mode? That's right, folks. For less than one appraisal fee, you can have it for the entire year. That's $349 per year, okay, for the next 10 years. Guaranteed. That price can't go up. Check them out. That's alamode.com/free trial. Once again, alamode.com/free trial. Speaking of software that makes things easier, how would you like a software that could import all of your comps, the ones that you choose out of your MLS, into your report, whether you're using a la mode or ACI or Bradford or Wayne Pugh's software? Trust me, folks, you're going to want to check out DataMaster, because you right now, if you're not using DataMaster, you are spending too much time doing an appraisal report. Yeah, I said it, folks. You're spending too much time doing an appraisal report because you're not spending enough time focused on being an appraiser. Instead, you're doing too much data entry or you're paying somebody else to do it. Datamaster will solve that problem for you. Datamasterfreetrial.com/coach. Once again, it's datamasterfreetrial.com/coach. And you can try them for 14 days. That's unlimited downloads. Trust me, folks, you will be sold. That's why they give you the 14 days. You're not going to go back after that. Check them out, datamasterfreetrial.com/coach. And finally, we're sponsored today by OREP Insurance. I've told you folks before that when I switched to OREP, my premiums went down over $100. Now, that was a surprise to me. The next year, they went down over $100 more. That means I saved in 2 years over $200. Now, I have no idea what's going to happen at my next renewal, except that I know this because I tried it last year. Renewal was a cinch. How many of you dread renewal process? How many of you do not look forward to going through the renewal process with your E&O? Well, OREP makes it very, very easy. Go to orep.org, that's OREP.org, and check out how easy it is and how much you can save by switching to OREP. And welcome back, folks. We are talking with Brian Mathews. Brian is a USPAP instructor in Southern California, where it's warm. I can tell you, as of this recording, my friend, I'll tell you, it was a -2 this morning when I got in my car. How's that for you?
Okay, that is cold. You're right. You win.
Little chilly. What we're doing today, folks, is kind of a continuation of an episode that we had a couple weeks ago where we talked about USPAP, myth or fact. And basically what we're doing is trying to dispel some of the myths out there that even longtime seasoned appraisers like myself sometimes get in this situation where we, number one, blame USPAP for everything. And number two, sometimes we don't understand USPAP as well as we think we do. And so that's what we're trying to help out with today. So, Brian, once again, thank you for being on the program. I really appreciate you taking time.
Oh, happy to be here.
Awesome. Okay, so we were where? Did we do number 5? I think we did number 5. We're on to number 6, right?
Yes.
Okay, here we go. Number 6, changing the client name. This is always the question in every single USPAP class, right? Changing the client name requires that request to be treated as a new assignment. I can tell you, because I've taken a USPAP class recently, I can tell you that's a fact.
Yeah, that's a fact, and that hopefully that went without saying. That is absolutely a fact.
Well, you know what, and like I say, it's a question that comes up in every single USPAP class that I take, and sometimes the instructor brings it up, but a lot of times, people in the class bring it up and they ask it as a serious question, which is fine, folks. I'm not getting down on you for asking the question. Please ask the question. We don't want you not knowing, okay? But this is something, man, it's just hammered over and over again. When you change the client name, folks, you are changing you can't just quote unquote reassign appraisals. Right,
absolutely. Yeah, and really the guide there is changing any of those 6 assignment elements. So changing the client name, adding or removing an intended user, changing the intended use of the appraisal, changing the type or definition of value, or the effective date, the relevant characteristics of the property, or any other assignment conditions that might affect the scope of work, really would require that request be treated as a new assignment. Okay, let's hit a couple of those.
So you briefly alluded to number 7, changing the effective date requires that the request be treated as a new assignment. This comes up often, Brian, when we'll do an appraisal for client A, for example, and for whatever reason, that doesn't go through. Oh no, here's a better situation. So we'll do an assignment for client A. And it'll be just a standard conventional appraisal. I am on the FHA board, and so sometimes they'll come back a couple weeks later and they'll say, we need an FHA appraisal now. Well, okay, I didn't perform an FHA inspection when I was out there. I didn't get up in the attic. I didn't test the appliances. There's a lot of things I didn't look at because it wasn't an FHA at the time. So I say to them, well, I've got to go back out, and they say, well, we still want the same effective date. Well, no, I got to go back out. I got to do a new inspection. And thus, it is you're saying it's a new assignment at that point, right?
Yeah. Anytime you change the effective date, we'd be required to treat it like a new assignment. It doesn't always require that we repeat any of the steps necessarily, but in the scenario you just laid out, your inspection date is going to be after the case number is issued on that FHA assignment, so that would require a new inspection.
Yeah, you're right on that.
And on the URAR, that means new inspection date means new effective date.
And it also might mean new value, right?
It may, sure, absolutely.
Yeah. So anytime we have even a couple days between effective dates, we're going to check and see, has there been anything sold in the last week? Has there been anything sold in the last couple of days that may dramatically or even somewhat significantly affect our value? And it may take changing out a comp. Maybe other information comes to light that may affect value. And I make sure lenders know that up front that, I'm going back out to do an FHA inspection, and it will change the effective date, and it may change the value as well. Some of them are kind of saying, well, what do you mean it's only been a week? Well, things happen, right? This is a snapshot in time, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. New data may impact the value conclusion.
Good. Okay. Number 8, changing borrower name. Okay, changing borrower name requires that the request be treated as a new assignment. Well, I'm just going off of what you've been saying here. So absolutely, you change anything, it's got to be a new assignment, right?
Yeah, actually changing the borrower name would not require that the request be treated as a new assignment.
What?
So,
come on.
Well, sometimes they'll add a borrower, maybe somebody who doesn't qualify for a loan. So we're not appraising the borrower. That's just changing data in the report. It would require a new report date, but it wouldn't necessarily require that the request be treated as a new assignment.
Now I want to punctuate something because you said the word date, but there is a difference between report date and effective date.
Right. The report date, we typically think of the report date as the signature date, the date we actually submit the report to the client.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And that should be changed anytime we change any data within the report. If we resubmit the report, we need to change the report date.
Okay. Number 9, USPAP allows disclosure of assignment results to an unauthorized third party after 5 years. So 5 years is up. That work file thing is up. So we're good to go. So now I can say anything I want to say, right?
Nope.
No. But what if I appraise the celebrity's home and I really want to brag about it? Can't I just wait 5 years and then shout it out all over Facebook?
Yeah, I've gotten that question before, by the way. They wanted to sell the report to TMZ and thought that after 5 years they could do that.
Right.
And, no, the answer is no. Clearly no.
As an aside, I was actually on a celebrity's property, when was it? About 4 or 5 weeks ago. And, it's interesting when you're in that situation because things are always different than you envisioned them, right? I'm not going to tell you which celebrity. I'm not going to tell you why I was there. I'll just tell you that I was there, and there were some surprising things that I saw that I don't know if TMZ would be interested in it, but I thought it was interesting. So
good business decision, Dustin.
Yeah, there you go. Okay, number 10, USPAP allows disclosure of an assignment result to be, USPAP allows disclosure of assignment results to an unauthorized third party after the client has gone out of business. I'm going to say if the last one was a myth, this has got to be a myth as well.
Yep, and you're absolutely right. There's no time limit on confidentiality, so we can't disclose those assignment results to a third party, even if the client's long gone and somebody else has taken over that loan.
Which leads us to our last question. USPAP allows disclosure of assignment results to an unauthorized third party after a zombie apocalypse. That's any question you have with zombie apocalypse has got to be true.
USPAP never, ever allows disclosure of assignment results to an unauthorized third party.
Lord.
Ever.
Man,
ever.
I was holding out for that zombie takeover, and then we'd be able to reveal everything to everybody. Well, Brian, this has been a lot of fun. I really appreciate you being on and talking through some of these things. I think we understand sometimes, but it's always a good reminder to know what we should be doing. I hope this has been beneficial to the listeners as well.
Thanks, Dustin. I really appreciate you having me on and everything that you do to help appraisers out.
Thank you, Brian. And this has been Brian Mathews. He is a USPAP instructor in the Southern California area and very knowledgeable, as you can tell, and very fun guy to get to know. Really appreciate that. And folks, if you have questions about USPAP or other things, please reach out to me, the coach at theappraisercoach.com. Again, it's the coach, THE coach at theappraisercoach.com. Would love to handle every once in a while we do a listener questions episode. Haven't done it lately, but we do every once in a while. So if you have questions that you would like answered on the air or would like to come on the air, as Brian did and was willing to do. It's not as scary as it looks. Brian told me off the air that it was he was cool as a cucumber, and you could feel that. Actually, those are my words, not his. But it was not as challenging as it looks up front. So please be willing to reach out, especially if you have a story to tell. Our Appraiser Stories episodes are always very, very popular. We would love to hear your story, hear a little bit about you, your background, why you decided to become an appraiser, and a little bit about your business in your neck of the woods. So reach out to me again. It's the coach at theappraisercoach.com. Thanks again for joining us. Thanks again for Brian being willing to be on, and we will catch you next time.